Okay, so today we're diving into AI,
Mhm.
more specifically how China is approaching this whole thing, and we're going to be focusing on DeepSeek, which is this Chinese AI company that's kind of like making some waves and giving U.S. companies like a real run for their money.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. We've got some sources here that give us like a glimpse into kind of like what people are saying within China's AI community.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, we have some excerpts here from an article from China Talk, and they're like on top of China's tech scene. And we also have some translated snippets from a discussion between some Chinese AI experts.
Yeah, so we're kind of like getting this like inside scoop, like we're eavesdropping on like a really high level strategy session.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so first of all, like, who is this DeepSeek company? They've kind of like come out of nowhere.
So DeepSeek was founded last year in July by this quant trading whiz named Yang Wenfeng. And what's crazy is they're already like getting these really impressive results, like comparable to some of the major players in the US.
So they're like achieving this with like way fewer resources than these US companies.
Exactly. And that's like a huge part of what's making people take notice. Like they're doing more with less.
Yeah.
And it really kind of challenges this narrative that you need like billions of dollars worth of servers to make any real progress in AI.
So like DeepSeek's basically saying you don't necessarily need to have this like massive amount of computing power.
Yeah. Like they're showing that you can be really scrappy and clever and still get amazing results. So it's like they found a way to kind of like outsmart the system.
Okay, so it's not just about brute force. It's about being smart with what you got.
Exactly. And one of the things that DeepSeek is really focused on is language models, which is a little bit different than what we're seeing from some companies in the West that are going for this like more generalized AI.
Why do you think they're so focused on language models?
I mean, language is like the basis of human communication,
Mm.
right? So if you can master language, you can do some pretty incredible things. Like think about translation to content creation, even like understanding how humans think.
Yeah, it's like unlocking the secrets to like how we think and communicate.
Right. And DeepSeek is getting a lot of attention for this. They're even getting headlines like Silicon Valley shocked in Chinese state media.
Wow. So there's definitely this like national pride element to this whole thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like China sees this as a major win. And it kind of feeds into this whole narrative of China's technological rise.
Right. It's like they're proving that they can compete with the US on the global AI stage.
Exactly. And the founder of DeepSeek, Liang Wenfeng, he's this like really interesting character. He's been quoted saying that DeepSeek's goal is to like push intelligence and that money and commercialization are like lower priorities.
Wow. That's like a totally different mindset than a lot of Silicon Valley companies where like profit is like the number one goal.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you wonder like what their long-term strategy is. Like how are they going to sustain this if they're not focused on making money?
Right. Especially when they're going up against these like giants like Google and Microsoft.
Yeah, but there's this really interesting rumor that they might be partnering with ByteDance.
Wait, ByteDance, like the company behind TikTok?
Yeah, exactly. And if that happens, it could be huge for DeepSeek.
How so?
Well, ByteDance has a ton of data and computing power. So a partnership could give DeepSeek the resources they need to like really compete on a global scale.
Yeah, that would definitely shake things up. Okay, so we've talked about DeepSeek's approach to AI and kind of like how they're challenging the status quo. But I'm curious about this whole idea of vision that keeps coming up in the discussion between these Chinese AI experts.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. They seem to think that China's real strength in AI isn't just about the technology itself, but about their vision for what AI can achieve.
So it's not just about building like bigger and faster models. It's about the bigger picture. Like, what is the purpose of all of this?
Exactly. They're not just trying to copy what the US is doing. They're trying to come up with their own unique approach to AI that's rooted in their own values and their own vision for the future.
So it's like a fundamental difference in how they're approaching this whole thing.
Right. And they believe that this vision is what's going to ultimately set them apart. And they even go so far as to say vision trumps technology.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
Hmm?
So are they saying that the US is like lacking vision?
I wouldn't say it's about lacking vision. It's more about having a different set of priorities and a different perspective on the role of AI in society.
Okay, so what are some examples of how this vision is playing out in DeepSeek's approach?
Well, one thing that really stands out is their commitment to open source development. They're not trying to hoard all their advancements. They're putting it out there for others to build upon.
That's pretty unusual, especially in the world of AI, which is like super competitive.
It is. And it's sparking a lot of debate about whether this could force other companies to be more open with their models too.
So it's like they're leading by example. They're saying, hey, this is how we think AI should be developed. It should be collaborative and open.
Right. And it aligns with their whole mission of pushing intelligence. They seem to believe that a more open approach will lead to faster progress and more benefits for everyone.
Okay, I love that idea. But now I'm really curious about how they're achieving this level of efficiency with limited resources. Like, what's the secret sauce?
That's where it gets really interesting. So let's dive into some of the technical details, starting with their approach to supervised fine-tuning, or SFT.
Now, for those of us who aren't like AI engineers, what exactly is SFT?
Okay, so imagine you have a student who's really bright and understands the basics, but they need some specialized training to really excel in a certain subject. SFT is kind of like that specialized training for AI models. You feed the model carefully labeled data to help it get better at specific tasks.
So it's like giving the AI model a crash course in a specific area?
Exactly. But here's the crazy part. DeepSeek has managed to, in some cases, eliminate the need for SFT altogether.
Wait, they're like skipping a step that everyone else thinks is essential? How is
Yeah.
that even possible?
It's a combination of really clever algorithms and a super meticulous approach to data annotation.
Oh, yeah. I remember you were saying that they compare their data annotation process to like Tesla's approach to labeling data for their self-driving cars.
Right. They're like obsessed with data quality. They understand that even the most brilliant algorithm is only as good as the data it's trained on.
So it's like garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to compromise on data quality.
Hmm.
So they're investing the time and resources to make sure their training data is like perfect.
That's interesting. So instead of relying on like massive amounts of data, they're focusing on having a smaller but like perfectly curated data set.
Exactly. And that's allowing them to get amazing results without having to do a ton of SFT, which can be really time-consuming and expensive.
So it's like they're working smarter, not harder.
And that leads us to another technical innovation that DeepSeek is using: distillation.
Distillation.
Yeah.
What is that?
So distillation is basically a way of transferring knowledge from a bigger, more complex AI model to a smaller, more efficient one. It's like creating a Cliff's Notes version of a huge textbook.
Oh, I get it. So they're taking these like massive AI models and like shrinking them down without losing too much of their power?
Exactly. And that's really important for things like mobile devices where you don't have a lot of computing power.
Right. You don't want your phone's battery dying after 5 minutes of using an AI app.
But as with any shortcut, there are some potential downsides to using distillation too much. Some experts worry that it could limit model diversity and stifle innovation.
So it's like you don't want to rely on shortcuts too much. You need to make sure you're still pushing the boundaries and exploring new possibilities.
Right. And that brings us to another interesting debate about how to train AI models. Should you focus on rewarding the process of how the AI arrives at an answer, or just the final outcome?
So is it about how you get there or just about reaching the destination?
Yeah, that's the question. And there are trade-offs to both approaches. Rewarding the process can encourage the AI to develop a deeper understanding, but it can also be really easy for the AI to figure out how to game the system.
Right, like a student figuring out how to get good grades without actually learning anything.
Exactly. But on the other hand, focusing only on the outcome might cause you to miss out on valuable insights from the AI's learning process.
So it's about finding the right balance between the two.
And that ties into this bigger point about what these Chinese experts are trying to achieve with AI.
Right.
They're not just interested in building models that can, like, pass a test. They want to build AI that can actually understand and reason about the world.
It's about building AI that can actually think for itself.
Exactly. And that brings us to this really provocative statement that the experts make. They believe that humanity's demand for intelligence is vastly underestimated.
So you're saying we haven't even begun to tap into the true potential of AI?
They seem to think so. They believe that AI has the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems, like climate change and curing diseases.
Those are some pretty lofty goals. But it's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It really is. And that's what makes DeepSeek so interesting. They're not just building AI for the sake of building AI. They're building it with a purpose. And that purpose is to solve real-world problems and advance our understanding of the universe.
Yeah, that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about the technology, it's about the vision behind it and the impact it could have on our lives.
It really is. And that's why we need to pay attention to what's happening in China. Because they're not just playing catch-up anymore. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. And they're doing it with a different mindset and a different set of priorities.
And that's what makes this whole thing so exciting and unpredictable.
Absolutely. And that's something we'll have to keep in mind as we continue to explore the world of AI and its impact on our future.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about DeepSeek's unique approach, their focus on language models, their commitment to open source, and this idea of vision that's driving their innovation.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore here. So make sure you stick around for the next part of our deep dive, where we'll be delving even deeper into the technical innovations that are fueling DeepSeek's success. And we'll be talking about the implications of all of this for the future of AI.
I'm excited to keep going. This is like opening up a whole new world of possibilities, so stay tuned for more.
So, before we kind of like went down this whole technical rabbit hole, we were talking about like DeepSeek's impact on the whole AI landscape and their like unique way of going about things.
Yeah, we talked about how they're so efficient, they're laser focused on language, and they're all about open source. But like zooming out a bit, what does DeepSeek tell us about like China's overall AI strategy?
Yeah, that's the big question. And these sources give us some pretty good clues. I mean, it looks like DeepSeek isn't just like some random thing. It's more like a sign of a bigger shift in how China is thinking about AI.
So they're not just trying to catch up to the US.
I mean, there's definitely some of that, but they're also like blazing their own trail.
Hmm.
They're using their own strengths and focusing on areas where they think they can get ahead.
It's like they looked at what the US was doing, learned from it, and now they're like, okay, here's how we can do it better.
Exactly. And the experts we're reading about, they highlight this contrast between like DeepSeek's founder, Liang Wenfeng, and someone like Sam Altman from OpenAI. They say Wenfeng is way more like technically focused, even more hands-on with the development.
So it's not just about like throwing money at the problem like some US companies might do.
It's about combining like technical smarts, strategic use of resources,
Hmm.
and really focusing on getting specific things done.
And those goals, like we were saying, seem to be all about this pushing intelligence thing. They're not just building AI for the sake of it. They want to use it to actually solve real-world problems.
There's definitely a sense of urgency in how they're going about it.
Yeah.
Like they believe AI isn't just another tech thing. It's a fundamental change in how we deal with the world and figure things out.
Which brings us to another big part of all this, the whole geopolitical side of DeepSeek's rise.
This is where things get a bit more complicated. There's definitely a feeling of national pride in what DeepSeek's doing. Like China's finally proving they can play in the big leagues of AI.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just going to follow the US lead anymore. We can innovate too.
The sources definitely show how DeepSeek's being used to boost this whole story of China becoming a tech superpower.
But it's not just about bragging rights, is it? There's like real economic and strategic stuff at play here.
Absolutely. AI is going to be a big part of who has economic power and global influence in the future. Whoever's in control of this tech is going to have a serious advantage.
So yeah, it's high stakes and DeepSeek's kind of changing the game.
The discussion even talks about how DeepSeek's efficiency is making U.S. companies rethink what they thought they knew.
Like they can't just assume that having more money and more servers means they'll automatically stay ahead.
DeepSeek's showing you can get the same or even better results by being more focused and smarter about how you use your resources.
And that affects everyone in AI, right? From the chip makers like NVIDIA to the cloud companies like Amazon.
They even think DeepSeek's success could lead to making more specialized AI chips, chips that are designed for specific tasks and built to be super efficient.
So it's not just about who's got the biggest data centers anymore. It's about who can build the smartest, most efficient systems.
Exactly. And that's where the open source thing comes in. Again, DeepSeek sharing what they've learned could make things more fair, so smaller companies and countries with fewer resources can catch up.
It's almost like they're trying to make AI more democratic, so innovation isn't just controlled by a few big companies.
And that could have a huge impact on how AI develops and how it affects society. Will it lead to more collaboration and openness, or will it just make the competition between China and the U.S. even fiercer?
Those are big questions, and I guess we'll have to see how it all plays out. But one thing's for sure, DeepSeek's changed things up. They've made everyone rethink who's going to lead this AI revolution and what the future of this tech looks like.
It's a super interesting story,
Mhm.
and we've just started to unpack it all. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at what DeepSeek's actually doing on a technical level to be so efficient.
Okay, I'm ready to get technical. What can you tell me about how they're pulling off this amazing performance with seemingly fewer resources?
One of the things that really makes DeepSeek stand out is how they deal with data. Remember we were talking about how obsessed they are with making sure their data is labeled perfectly?
Right, they were comparing themselves to Tesla and how they label all that data for their self-driving cars.
Exactly. Well, it turns out that being super detail-oriented is a big part of how they're so efficient. DeepSeek gets that even the best algorithms are only as good as the data you feed them.
So it's like a chef who's picky about only using the best ingredients.
Exactly. They don't cut corners when it comes to data. They're willing to put in the time and effort to make sure the data they use to train their AI is clean, accurate, and relevant.
Which means they're not wasting time and energy training their models on bad data.
It's a smart move, and it shows a big difference in philosophy between DeepSeek and some Western companies. DeepSeek cares more about data quality than just having tons of data.
So it's like saying it's better to have a smaller set of data that's perfect than a huge, messy set of data.
And that brings us to another technical thing. DeepSeek's really good at distillation. Remember, we talked about that a little earlier.
Remind me, how does that work again?
It's like taking a big, complicated AI model and teaching a smaller, simpler one to do the same things. Imagine taking a giant textbook and making a little cheat sheet with all the important stuff.
So they're basically making these smaller AI systems that can still do almost as much as the bigger ones.
Exactly. And that's a big deal for things like phones and other devices that don't have a ton of processing power.
Like you don't want your phone dying just because you used an AI app for a few minutes.
Right. But remember, we said there might be some downsides to using distillation too much. It could make all the models too similar and maybe even slow down new discoveries.
Like if you only ever use cheat sheets, you might not learn as much as if you actually read the whole textbook.
That's a good way to think about it. And it connects to another interesting discussion about how to train AI. Should you reward the AI for the steps it takes to get an answer, or just for getting the right answer in the end?
So is it like giving someone points for showing their work, even if they don't get the final answer right?
The experts seem to think you need to be careful about rewarding the process, because some AIs could learn to cheat the system.
Like a student who figures out how to get good grades without actually learning the material?
But they also say you shouldn't just focus on whether the AI gets the right answer, because you might miss some important stuff about how it learned.
It's like if you ignore a scientific discovery just because the first experiment didn't work out exactly as planned.
And to wrap up this technical part, remember how the experts said they think people are way underestimating how much we need intelligence?
So we're only just getting started with AI.
That's what they think. They believe AI can solve some of the world's toughest problems, like fixing climate change and curing diseases.
That sounds pretty optimistic, but wouldn't that be amazing?
It would. And what makes DeepSeek so interesting is they're not just building AI because it's cool. They're building it to try and actually make a difference in the world.
That's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. DeepSeek's not just a company. They represent this whole new way of thinking about technology and innovation.
And it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the vision behind it and how that vision could change our lives.
And it shows that China's not just playing catch-up anymore. They're pushing the limits of what's possible with AI, and they're doing it their own way.
And that makes the future of AI even more exciting and unpredictable.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in part two, talking about China's AI strategy, DeepSeek's impact on the industry, and their unique way of doing things.
And now it's time to zoom back in and take another look at some of the really innovative stuff DeepSeek's doing on a technical level that's helping them get such incredible results.
I'm ready to go deeper. What else can you tell me about their approach and how they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI?
One of the things that really stands out is their deep understanding of how important data is. They're not just focused on having lots of data. They're obsessed with making sure the data they use is top-notch.
Right. We talked about how they compare themselves to Tesla and their meticulous data labeling practices.
Exactly. And this attention to detail is a big part of why they're so efficient. They know that even the smartest AI system is only as good as the data it learns from.
So it's like a chef who only uses the freshest, highest quality ingredients.
Exactly. They're not cutting corners when it comes to data quality. They're willing to put in the time and effort to make sure their training data is clean, accurate, and perfectly suited to the task at hand.
And that pays off because they're not wasting computational resources on training their models with garbage data.
It's a really smart strategy, and it highlights a fundamental difference in philosophy between DeepSeek and some other companies. They're not just chasing after bigger data sets. They're focusing on building a solid foundation with the highest quality data possible.
It's like they're saying quality over quantity.
Precisely. And this emphasis on quality over quantity extends to another technical innovation that DeepSeek has mastered, distillation, which we talked about a bit earlier.
Yeah, I remember that. Can you refresh my memory on how distillation works?
Sure. It's a technique where you take a larger, more complex AI model, and you essentially teach a smaller, more streamlined model to mimic its behavior. Imagine taking a world-renowned expert in a particular field and distilling all their knowledge and experience into a concise, easy-to-understand guide.
So it's like creating these lean, mean AI machines that can pack a punch without needing a ton of computing power.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for deploying AI on devices like smartphones and other systems with limited resources.
You could have a super smart AI assistant running on your phone without it draining the battery in 5 minutes.
Precisely. But as we mentioned before, there are some potential downsides to relying too heavily on distillation. It could limit the diversity of AI models and potentially stifle groundbreaking innovation in the long run.
It's like if you only ever use those condensed study guides, you might miss out on the depth and richness of exploring the subject matter in its entirety.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights this delicate balance between optimizing for efficiency and fostering true exploration in the world of AI. You don't want to get stuck in a rut, always relying on the same tried and true methods.
It's like the difference between following a well-worn path and venturing off into uncharted territory. Sometimes the most amazing discoveries are made when you take risks and explore new possibilities.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really interesting point that comes up in this discussion about the best way to train AI models. Should we focus on rewarding the process of how the AI arrives at an answer, or should we just care about the final outcome?
So it's like the old saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, but applied to AI.
Exactly. In the world of AI, it's about how we incentivize the learning process. Do we give the AI a gold star for each step it takes correctly, even if it doesn't get the final answer right? Or do we only care about whether it ultimately reaches the desired result?
It's like teaching a child to ride a bike. Do you praise them for every pedal stroke and attempt at balance, even if they wobble and fall? Or do you only celebrate when they can finally ride without any assistance?
The experts in this discussion seem to be advocating for a more nuanced approach. They recognize that rewarding the process can be easily manipulated by clever AIs that figure out how to game the system.
It's like a student figuring out how to ace a test without actually understanding the material.
Precisely. But they also caution against focusing solely on outcome-based rewards, arguing that we might miss out on valuable insights from the AI's learning process itself.
It's like dismissing a groundbreaking scientific discovery just because the initial experiments didn't go exactly as planned.
And to bring this technical deep dive to a close, there's this really thought-provoking statement from the experts. They believe that humanity's demand for intelligence is vastly underestimated.
So are you saying we're just scratching the surface of what AI can do?
They seem to think so. They argue that AI has the potential to tackle some of the world's most daunting challenges, like climate change and finding cures for diseases.
Those are some pretty ambitious goals, but it's definitely exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is.
Hmm.
And what makes DeepSeek so captivating is that they're not just building AI for the sake of building AI. They're building it with a purpose that's deeply rooted in solving real-world problems and expanding our understanding of the universe.
That's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the vision driving it and the potential impact it could have on our lives.
It really is. And it highlights why we need to pay attention to what's happening in China.
Yeah.
They're not just trying to catch up anymore. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. And they're doing it with a different mindset, a different set of priorities.
And that makes the whole landscape of AI development so much more dynamic and unpredictable.
Absolutely. It's something we need to keep in mind as we continue to explore the world of AI and its implications for our future.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our deep dive. We've talked about China's AI strategy, DeepSeek's impact on the industry, and their unique approach to development.
And now it's time to shift gears and explore the broader implications of all of this. What does DeepSeek's emergence mean for the future of AI and for you, our listener?
I'm ready to wrap our heads around the big picture. What are the key takeaways here, especially for someone who might not be an AI expert?
I think the most important thing to understand is that DeepSeek's success isn't just about having brilliant engineers or fancy algorithms. It's about having a clear vision and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
So it's about thinking differently, not being afraid to experiment, and maybe even questioning this idea that bigger is always better.
Exactly. DeepSeek's approach is a powerful reminder that innovation can come from anywhere, and that even companies with limited resources can make a huge impact if they have the right strategy and a compelling vision.
And DeepSeek's vision seems to be all about this idea of pushing intelligence, focusing on fundamental advancements in AI, rather than just chasing quick profits.
Right. And that's a key difference between them and some of the big tech companies out there. DeepSeek seems to be playing a longer game, aiming to unlock the true potential of AI to solve real-world problems and advance our understanding of the world.
That's a pretty ambitious goal. Do they really think AI can solve things like climate change and cure diseases?
I wouldn't say they have all the answers, but they definitely believe in the power of AI to help us address these challenges.
And their commitment to open source shows they're willing to share their knowledge and work with others to achieve these goals.
Exactly. They seem to believe that a more open and collaborative approach to AI development will ultimately benefit everyone, leading to faster progress and a more equitable distribution of the benefits of this incredible technology.
That's a really refreshing perspective, especially in a field that can be so competitive and secretive. But let's not forget about the geopolitical side of all this. DeepSeek's rise isn't just about technological advancements, it's also about power and influence on the global stage.
Absolutely. DeepSeek's success is seen as a symbol of China's growing technological power, and it's fueling this sense of national pride and ambition. It's also raising some eyebrows about a potential shift in the balance of power, especially when it comes to AI.
So we're kind of watching a tech race unfold between China and the US with AI as the prize.
In some ways, yes, but it's not as simple as that. There's also a lot of potential for collaboration and cooperation, especially on big issues like climate change and global health, where the stakes are so high.
So it's not just about competition, it's also about finding ways to work together to tackle these shared challenges.
Exactly. And I think that's a crucial takeaway for our listeners. The future of AI isn't set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the decisions that companies, governments, and individuals are making.
So we all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. It's not something that's just happening to us. It's something we can actively participate in and influence.
And that's why it's so important to stay informed, to engage in meaningful conversations, and to really think about the ethical implications of this powerful technology.
This has been such an eye-opening journey, exploring the technical breakthroughs, the geopolitical dynamics, and the philosophical questions surrounding DeepSeek's rise. What's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with something to really ponder as they continue to explore the world of AI?
I think the key takeaway is this: never underestimate the power of vision. DeepSeek's story proves that a clear vision, combined with a willingness to challenge the status quo and embrace collaboration, can lead to extraordinary results. And as AI continues to advance at an incredible pace, it's crucial for all of us to engage with this technology thoughtfully and responsibly to ensure its use for the betterment of humanity, not just for profit or power.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of DeepSeek and the evolving AI landscape. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Okay, so we're back, wrapping up our deep dive into DeepSeek, this Chinese AI company that's really shaking things up.
Yeah, we've gone pretty broad looking at the big picture. The whole geopolitics thing even got a little technical. Now it's time to kind of put it all together and think about what this means for the future of AI and for everyone listening.
All right, so DeepSeek's doing some amazing stuff with not that many resources, which makes you wonder, what's the secret, especially for people who aren't super techy?
One thing that really stands out is DeepSeek's success isn't just about having genius engineers or super complicated algorithms.
Yeah.
It's more about having a clear vision and being willing to think differently.
So it's like thinking outside the box, not being afraid to try new things, and maybe even questioning that whole idea that bigger is always better.
Exactly. DeepSeek shows that innovation can come from anywhere. Even companies without a ton of resources can do big things if they've got the right strategy and a strong vision.
And it seems like their vision is all about this pushing intelligence thing, focusing on making AI fundamentally better instead of just chasing profits.
Right, and that's a big difference compared to some of the big tech giants. DeepSeek's playing the long game, trying to unlock AI's full potential to solve real problems and help us understand the world better.
That's a pretty ambitious goal. Do they actually think AI can solve things like climate change and cure diseases?
Well, I don't know if they have all the answers, but they definitely believe that AI could be a game changer in tackling these kinds of challenges.
And their whole open source thing shows they're not afraid to share their knowledge and work with others to reach those goals.
Exactly. They believe that being more open and collaborative about AI is better for everyone. It'll speed up progress and make sure everyone benefits from this powerful technology.
I like that idea, especially since AI can feel like a super competitive and secretive field. But we can't forget about the whole global power dynamic. DeepSeek's rise isn't just about technology, it's about China's growing influence on the world stage.
Absolutely. Their success is a sign of China's tech power And it's making people think about who's going to be leading the way in AI.
So it's like a tech race between China and the US with AI as the prize.
In some ways, yeah, but it's not that simple. There's also a lot of room for working together, especially on things like climate change and global health, where the stakes are so high.
So it's not just about competition, it's also about finding ways to collaborate to solve these huge problems that affect everyone.
Exactly, and that's a really important point. The future of AI isn't set in stone. It's being shaped right now by the choices that companies, governments, and individuals are making.
So we all have a part to play in shaping what AI becomes. It's not something that's just happening to us. It's something we can actually influence and participate in.
Right, and that's why it's so important to stay informed, to have these conversations, and to really think about the ethics of using this powerful technology.
This has been a really fascinating journey exploring all these different aspects of DeepSeek's rise.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Don't underestimate the power of vision. DeepSeek shows what can happen when you have a clear vision and you're willing to challenge the norm and work together. And as AI keeps advancing at this crazy speed, we all need to think critically and responsibly about this technology to make sure it's used to make the world a better place, not just to make money or gain power.
Perfectly said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of DeepSeek and the future of AI. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.